How do you intend to gain possession of this land that you want, and how do you intend to get there?
It's a contribution that the black man made in this country, which amounts to 310 years of slave labor, for which we have never been given a dime or a cent, places a burden upon the American white man today for which the government should pay. Since we cannot live in peace together, mixed up on this continent, the alternative to that solution is to divide a separate part of this country into which our people can migrate, and in which the government again should supply us with the machinery and the tools necessary to establish our own independent society and our own independent country. And in this way, it will be creating a solution that the black man himself, our people, ourselves, can bring about if we have that capability. And for your clarification, because this has been brought up, some people say, well, why should the government do this? If this government can send billions of dollars to communist countries like Poland and Yugoslavia and to neutralist countries in Asia and Africa who have never made any contribution whatsoever to the sum net worth of this economy and country, and at the same time, this government feels that it is too much to set about something real to solve the problem for the slaves who made a greater contribution even than your people did, why the government doesn't even deserve to continue to function as a government.
What land is available that's not already possessed by others?
When you came to this country, the land was inhabited by the Indians, and you didn't have any problem with
Free the land, battle cry in our freedom call. Political prisoners in the system, we say free them all. You hear the call, haters never wanna see you ball. But I'm a freedom fighter, I just wanna see them fall. Standing tall, cause we trapped in the system. They slapped us in prison, just a part of capitalism. I'm a revolutionary, I adapt to the system. I ain't playing with y'all haters, I come strapped when I kick them.
Black fist in the air as we walk through the door, representing Malcolm X and Assata Shakur. Queen Mother Moore, Batula, Shakur. Fight to free the land is what we doing it for. The struggle, the leader, for Huey, for Mia, Garvey Fred Hampton, General Hamisha, Grand Master Teacher. He's blasting y'all, you're gonna feel it. The voices of New Africa.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Africa.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Africa.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Africa.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Africa.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Africa.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Africa.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Africa.
Free the land.
These are voices of New Africa.
Free the land.
We got to have thinkers that are going to direct us in terms of how we're going to be able to achieve the goal of liberation throughout the world. We have the same problem. That is neo-colonialism. We have no control over any area in which we live. Matter of fact, we have been diminished, and all of those things have happened under the American system of capitalism. That's why we're saying we want to break away and create our own, and have our own self-government, and have our own control over our lives.
You're listening to the voices of New Africa, where we educate the uneducated and re-educate the miseducated. Free the land.
And y'all back once again in the Voice of New Africa show where we educate uneducated, re-educate the miseducated. I am your host along with my bad, my mic was muted, but we are back at the Voices of New Africa, the show where we educate the uneducated and re-educate the miseducated. I am your host, Brother Prophecy, and as always, I'm here with my comrade, my elder, my grandmaster teacher, the one and only Brother Fadali. How you doing, Brother Fadali?
I'm doing as great as I can under the conditions under which our people live throughout the world. We are African and New Africans in the Western Hemisphere. But we are going to win. We're going to organize ourselves, organize our people, so that we are going to free ourselves.
Exactly, exactly. And before we even get into this, we're going to be talking a lot about organization in this particular program, and we're going to be talking about programs that actually exist through the Republic of New Africa, the PGRNA, and we're going to show you how you can get involved with that. But you said, you're doing well despite the conditions that our people face, not only here in America, but throughout globally. So let me ask you this, not to just put you on the spot, but let me ask you, why does everywhere you go in the world you find black people in certain conditions? You find the power dynamic the same, where you have where it appears black people at the bottom and European people at the top. Why does that condition exist?
Okay, because when we understand that the European did not supposedly liberate these African countries, especially in Africa or in even South America, they created systems by which neo-colonialism became the rule. That is, Africans who looked like you and me basically put in positions of ruling these countries and turning over the resources of these countries to the former so-called mother countries, and the mother countries were Britain, France, um, Portugal, Spain, who went throughout the world, England, and went throughout the world and took over control through colonialization. And colonialization is still in existence, but it's been ruled by black skin with white masks. You know,
Mm,
as Frantz Fanon said in
mm,
one of his books, "Black Skin, White Mask." And
okay.
then so therefore we see the conditions have not been better for the masses, but we have a class of people that we call neo-colonialists that are acting on behalf of the former European colonists who directly rule many parts of the world, and we see that we have a class of people in places like Nigeria and which is the largest African continent in population. But basically, they are currying to the favor of their former so-called master, England. And in the educational process, many of the so-called well-off go to school in the different countries, that used to rule them. They'll go to Portugal, they'll go to France, they'll go to England for their so-called education, and get the blessing from the rulers of those countries. So therefore there's a class system that is set up, what we call a class struggle that is going on, where the working class and other classes, that the so-called lower classes, are being dominated by these wealthy leaders or parties and the other thing is they're keeping chaos. They're keeping wars taking place in different groups of people, because in the places like Congo, where it is one of the richest places in the world, but they keep
Hmm.
wars going on to turn over to the former masters of that country, and give you an example of how that took place in the Congo, which is one of the larger countries on the African. 12 million Congolese were killed by King Leopold,
Hmm.
who took over the Congo in 1885, and basically he was so bad that that his own people had to overthrow him, so so he would not eliminate and exterminate uh, the working masses of the Congo. but it continued all the way up to the so-called Liberation Day. Patrice Lumumba, who was calling for Pan-Africanism and African come together, and he was assassinated in 1961, and by the United States government, CIA. You know, but there were so-called African leaders under their direction that murdered Patrice Lumumba. Matter of fact, it was so bold back then that they showed him being led on the back of a truck, you know, and hands tied behind him. And ultimately, they buried him. And once they killed him, they put him in some kind of asphalt kind of burial place, you know, that is not known, that is unknown. Uh, so when we look at that and we understand that in all areas, particularly, you know, when we look at Africa, we'll see that there have been various assassinations, and one of the latest was Muammar Gaddafi, which had the most progressive government in terms of of returning the oil resources back to the people and actually giving the people money as a result of their control, 51% control of the oil, you know, in around Libya. And so even today, when we look at what's going on, we can see that this is a forte. That is to keep us as weak as possible, to keep us ununited as possible, unorganized as possible, and so that's why we stress that organization is the only way that we can overcome all of this throughout the world is a united front of all African revolutionaries to take control of the areas in which we live, wherever we are in the world, to take control of the resources that are at that are there for us and for our people, and so basically, this is a war that is going to take a while, but we see sparks of organization taking place right now at this present time on the African continent, and July 4th was the day that we saw some forces from all over the world come together, talking about overthrowing capitalism and colonialism.
Exactly. Well said. And basically, in a nutshell, this is a global system and a global effort in order to maintain the power structure and maintain the status quo, and to keep the resources and the riches and the power in the hands of these Western European U.S. forces, and at the detriment really of the whole world. So it's a global enemy, and it requires a global response. Requires global organizing, not only on your local level, not only on the national level, but all the way up to the global level. But we're going to get into that and a whole lot more a little later. But we always like to start the show off. We're kind of talking about the things that's been going on around the world with a little segment we like to call Around the World in Black Again.
Live from Ida B. Wells City, spanning from Africa, Asia, all the way to the United States of America. This is Around the World in Black Again. It's the news, y'all, what's going on? It's the news, y'all, what's going on? It's the news, y'all, what's going on? It's the news, y'all, what's going on?
Okay, this past Wednesday, there was a meeting in the White House with Donald Trump and 5 African countries, the leaders of 5 African countries. Now, Jimmy, try to remember every country. You had Senegal, you had Guinea-Bissau, you had Liberia, you had Gabon. Yeah, that one. And it was one more that I'm missing. It's one more that I'm missing. But basically, they had a meeting with Guinea-Bissau. Okay. They had a meeting with in the White House with President Trump, and it's a lot of uh, interesting dynamics in this meeting. One of the first things you notice is the way that it was presented, the way it was filmed. Basically, you had a shot of Donald Trump, and you had the backs of all the African leaders. You didn't even really see their faces much during the during this meeting, and that's kind of a psychological tactic that people use. As you know, Donald Trump basically came from a reality show background, so you notice a lot of things that he do is for theater, is for effective, and he uses a lot of Hollywood theatrical techniques, and that was one of them because it shows a power relationship. It shows, the American president is the power force, and everybody else are just, secondhand actors in this whole theater, this drama. So that was one thing that was interesting. But the whole meeting was basically about the U.S. trying to gain control over the mineral and the resources of African countries. Even Donald Trump himself said that, Africa has, all type of wealth and resources more than other people have, really more than anywhere else in the world. And the goal was to try to really outcompete Russia and China for access to these resources. It was an interesting meeting. Trump did manage to show his ignorance during the meeting because Liberia, he complimented the president of Liberia, said that, well, this brother, you speak so good. You speak, your English is so good. Where did you learn to speak English? Not understanding that Liberia, the national language of Liberia is English. They were actually established by, uh, I guess, a colony of ex-enslaved Africans in America. So, that's their national language. That's the language they spoke, but the fact that he's praising this guy for speaking English just kind of shows his ignorance. But what's your thoughts on that whole meeting from what
Okay,
you got?
so especially Liberia, because Liberia was set up by a group of white colonists
Mm,
that wanted to send away because there was too many free so-called Africans, particularly up north, and they wanted to undercut the abolition movement. So these people, these Africans that were in America, were allowed to go to an area and the United States called it Liberia, and James Monroe. This was in 1823. James Monroe, one of the slave master presidents of the United States, uh, made a declaration for them to allow Africans who wanted to go back to Africa and they created this colony called Liberia, and in appreciation for uh, Monroe allowing these Africans go, but they went and named their country, their capital, which is the capital today, Monrovia. So
mm,
therefore, these are already after 200 years of slavery, a couple of hundred years of slavery, maybe 150 years of slavery uh, established in America. Many of these were like missionary. Some of them were just people who just wanted to go back to Africa, and Paul Cuffey, who was the African that had a ship, was able to use his boat to carry some of these Africans back to this land they call Liberia. But Liberia basically remained to be a colony of the United States, basically on the African continent. Really, the basically only colony the United States had on the continent of Africa. And I think I think it's 1947 and all that where they actually really got their liberation. But they had been governing since 1823. And matter of fact, Liberia. Okay, so Marcus Garvey was trying to build the economy of Liberia in the 1920s, 1930s, and sent a lot of equipment and everything to Liberia, to land that was supposed to be given to Liberia, but the United States government wouldn't allow Marcus Garvey to have to have that land, and that land was eventually given to Firestone Rubber Company. And Liberia became the center for Firestone Rubber Company. So now when we look at this and we see what's happening, and then in Liberia, the the people who came from America basically tried to think that they were missionary and really couldn't get along with the people, and so in the 1970s, 1980s, there was a rebellion in which many people who were supposedly originally from America were overthrown and many killed in Liberia because they didn't go back to readjust and become, the Africans. They wanted to be superior to the Africans who were already still indigenous in Liberia. So therefore, it's very significant when we look at that. And then in this conference, this press conference, Trump basically, showed his ignorance of, even in any time that a president or a leader of a country would have press conference with other countries. It seemed that they would have information given to them, some kind of that would identify who these different nations are. And the other significant thing in that, like I said, these nations came forward, like Gabon and Guinea-Bissau, with basically saying that they should have respect because they are very in rich areas of Africa. But Senegal, which is a country that was governed by France and supposedly given its independence in the 60s, basically, but the leadership were neo-colonial. In other words, they were given French citizenship, and one of the original leaders of uh, of um, of Senegal, when he retired as being president, he moved to France and became a French citizen. Now, this is the kind of stuff that, and so therefore, this guy from Senegal was so far off, wanted to build a so-called golf course in Senegal for President Trump to come there and all that. So even when you deal with that, Senegal is one of the smaller countries in Africa, and it is next to Ivory Coast, which is another neo-colonial post, and these people speak French, and so consequently, there's no respect, for the African, Pan African movement with these nations, even Liberia. Matter of fact, Liberia came a post after the so-called liberation period in the 60s, became a post to oppose Pan-Africanism, to oppose African coming together, those African nations. So it's suffering the effects. Matter of fact, I think Liberia is what they call it, has a so-called dual citizenship thing in terms of blacks, in America, in terms of when it to come to Liberia.
Yeah.
But this is shows you, like you said, the power of the so-called beast that is the United States government. And but in that group, like it was a mixed group. One, and Gabon was the president of Gabon was saying how was trying to impress Trump as to that they should have more respect because they have all that wealth.
Yeah, matter of fact, I think he was one of the few statements that I heard who really spoke up, and he said Africa is not rich. You know, he said you have people who are living in poverty, but Africa is not rich. We are rich. Africa is rich in minerals and natural resources, and he wanted to actually have an equal partnership. And that is what we would hope that all African leaders really stand up and demand, and not have these slave relationships with the colonizers, where they are basically getting exploited for their resources, and their people are suffering. This is something that you find common in Africa. And fortunately, we see some African leaders and some African nations waking up, especially with the Alliance of the Sahel and individuals like that, who are demanding that their resources go to benefit their people, in any agreement that they have with some foreign nation or foreign entity is a true partnership, whereas they're not exploiting exporting the resources in its raw material when it's not that valuable, and then going to foreign countries, to European and Western nations, and processing it, and then coming and selling it back to them for millions, and making millions and billions of dollars off of resources that came from the continent that they got pennies for. So, hopefully we would see more African leaders stand up and take that route, take that approach. So, our people can return to our original greatness. you know. But you talked about how in Liberia the African people from America came over there, and they still had a colonized mindset, the same mindset that they inherited from the white power structure here in America, and they brought that same mindset over there in Liberia, and the people who lived in Liberia basically rebelled against them. And I hear similar things like that throughout Africa. And a lot of people have not been decolonized when we come back to the continent. And we still, a lot of us have that mentality of, oh, we're coming over here to teach y'all because we've been up under the tutelage of the white man. We're better, we're superior. That whole mentality, that's something that has to be eradicated from our thinking. It's a book in which you talked about Franz Fanon earlier. He also has a book called Wretched of the Earth, where he does a lot of excellent work on the whole concept and principles behind decolonization. And I think that is something worthy of exploring and worthy of looking at, because we can analyze our own behavior and our own thinking patterns, not only in the continent, but right here in the United States, because this whole colonized mentality is so detrimental to our people globally, wherever you find us, because the colonized mentality is the same mentality that prevents African people from rising, from taking control over their resources and benefiting their people. The same colonized mentality prevents us from collectively uniting and taking control of the resources that we have here, taking control of our human resources, and bonding together and using our skills and our knowledge and our abilities to build up our own communities, to build up our own institutions, to build our own wealth and allow it to benefit our children, instead of just going to the colonizers' companies and corporations and using our intelligence and our brilliance to build their nation. So, the whole concept and principles behind decolonization is something that, one, we need to learn about, we need to study, and we need to actively decolonize ourselves so we can move forward. So, definitely with that. I guess briefly we can talk about some of the other things that's been happening in the news before we jump right into our main topic about organization, which we already been talking about organization. But I was looking at a report the other day. Matter of fact, before I came here, they said like over 800 people have been killed recently in Israel, trying to get aid. Just trying to get aid, because basically Israel, the people have been getting killed in Palestine. Um, but basically, Israel has been setting up traps. One, they have prevented aid from getting into the country. And when they have areas where they are believed that the Palestinian people can get aid from, they are setting death traps up for. When they try to get some food to prevent from starving to death, then they get shot down. They get mowed down with some of the most powerful, vicious weapons that have ever been created. And it's just true genocide. It's true genocide. And I think, everybody's pretty much waking up to it. But do you have any particular comments you want to make on that particular?
Yes, the state of it, we must call Zionism.
Mm-hmm.
These are not, these are not a religious group called the Jews. Jews have all kinds of colors.
Yeah.
In other words, in Ethiopia, you have the oldest group of Jews that that have existed. So, but this is like these are Zionist European people who took advantage of the fact that the Holocaust was committed in Europe, and and the so-called nations after at the end of World War II created the United Nations, and so consequently they sliced off the bulk of Palestine and gave it to these Zionist people that call themselves Jews. And we must be, and it's important to understand this because people think that this is like a religious,
Mm-hmm.
donation, like because these people were killed. Matter of fact, they were killed in Poland and different little places like that. And it seemed like they would have got a part of all, of Europe instead of part of Palestine
Yeah.
because it was the Europeans that committed the so-called Holocaust. That that killed so many oppressed people in coming from Nazi Germany, and other places in Europe, and so the Palestinians were colonized by the British after World War One. As a result of World War One, the British took control over Palestine, and Palestine, and doing it in the middle of World War One, made an agreement to allow these Zionists, and Zionism is a philosophy that says that these people who call themselves you must rule Palestine. And so they, as a result of World War, in World War One, Britain became the colonizer over the Palestinians, and made this agreement in 1917 to allow Jewish settlement in Palestine.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the result of the fact that one of the Zionists who lived in South Africa, his name was Charm Wiseman, came up with a chemical weapon that allowed Britain to win some territory in World War One. And this was an agreement that was given that would allow them to come. But even during this period of time, during World War II, these people were migrating into Palestine, and and Britain basically didn't try to follow up to allow them to have a state. So they used terrorism. This is Golda Meir and Moshe Dayan and several other people who became leaders of Israel, and they actually fought with the Germans, against the British, and to the point of where we got to understand that terror that the ultimate they terrorized their way into getting state by assassinating one of the British leaders, and the British basically gave and yielded up uh, Palestine to the United States. And in
Mm-hmm.
World War, at the end of World War II, they sectioned off a portion of land for the Jews to so-called settle. And but these Zionist people, they are colonialists also. their whole philosophy was that they were going to take control of, of Palestine. And so they waged several wars in which they took over Gaza and the West Bank, which were areas that that were under control of Palestinians, and ultimately they eliminated many Palestinians by destroying their villages and running them out. That's in 1947 when they became, established the state of Israel. So Israel is an illegal state in that and the British and the United States would not allow, did not recognize the rights of the Palestinians that were still inside of Palestine, that was the majority, and allowed Israel to basically, take control and take power and establish a state of Israel. And so this is what we are looking at from that standpoint. And the UN since 1967 had called for the Israel to allow the Palestinians to take control of those areas that were taken in that 5-year war that Israel waged against Egypt and Syria, and were able to take over a greater part of Palestine. So now we have that situation today, and we have Netanyahu, who is the leading factor of prime minister of Israel, that is wanted to give Donald Trump a peace prize for them being able to exterminate Gaza, because the United States is a main power behind Israel. In other words, they get billions and billions and billions of dollars and money and weapons to be able to rule over the Palestinians.
Definitely. Yeah, that's crazy. Netanyahu, which is a genocidal maniac, who wants to actually give somebody a Nobel Peace Prize. But big shouts out to our comrade Joe Gonzalez. Great to hear you back, brother. Great to hear you back. He said, all power, comrades. Nice to see that y'all back and up again. Always sharing knowledge, and definitely. I'm glad to see, you're checking in. Glad to hear from you. And if y'all out there, like I said, drop a comment. Let us know who you are so we can properly acknowledge you, because this is a family. Hit that like button, and let's continue with the conversation. Anything in particular you want to talk about, y'all just drop it in the comments and we'll talk about it. But yes, as we said earlier, and how we've been talking about the need for organization, and it's kind of been a theme of what we've been dealing with on the show. But I do want to talk about this initiative that has been launched by the Republic of New Africa. It really was launched a while back. It's been in existence, but it's one way that we can organize, especially here in the New African community. It's an initiative. It's a program called the Work, Train, and Study. And I'm gonna play this advertisement for it real quick, and we'll come back and we'll talk about it.
It's not good enough to simply want to build a nation. We have to put in the work. But how? What do we do? Where do we start? Work, study, and training. Work, Study, and Training is a program designed to equip you with the necessary knowledge and skills of nation building. We help you create units that will effectively do the work. Study. Gain a vital political education. Study the blueprints left to us by nation builders who came before us. Training. Not only learn how to build a nation, but learn how to protect and defend what we build. Work. Now it's time to apply what we've learned. If we want a nation, we have to build it.
Stop the talking, stop complaining. Stop the fussing, stop all the blaming. Gotta get up, the world is changing. Let's build our nation. Work, study, training. Reach elevation. Work, study, training. Get liberation. Work, study, training. No hesitation. Work, study, training.
If you want to start your own unit, just email us at pgunitstudy@gmail.com. Include your name, location, social media, and phone number. And together, we will build a nation. Free the land.
And that is one of the initiatives by the Republic of New Africa, the Work Training and Study Program. And basically, the Republic of New Africa will help you organize in whatever city you are in or wherever you're in, organize units between 10 and 13 people, I believe that's the number, and have an educational curriculum that you have to go through, because you have to have a brain, you have to have a mind, you have to be strategic, you have to understand the science of struggle, the science of revolution. You don't just go out doing stuff, because we don't do things based on what we believe, what we think, or what we hope to be true. It's actually a critical analysis that goes into the whole struggle, the whole principle behind revolution. And you study, you train on how to do the work, train on how to survive, how to defend yourself, train on all of these type of things. But you don't just educate yourself, you actually put all of that work and you put all of that training into actual practice. So the work part of the program is you got to get out in the community and you got to build these institutions. We have to build these schools. We have to build all of these things. We got to connect with the youth. We have to educate the youth. We have to educate the adults. We have to play an active role in our own liberation. We have to be the change that we want to make, that we want to see. So that leads us to the discussion that we want to have, that we've been having on organization, the needs to organization. So I'm gonna open it up to you, comrade. Anything you want to say about the program, about the commercial, about organization in general. I'm gonna leave it up to you.
Okay. So, all people, all revolutionary people have created organizations and have staked out areas in which we live. And so therefore, but political education, the Black Panther Party that came into being in 1966, basically stressed political education. And political education is important so that you'll be able to organize the people for action. That is, and then so when we look at what happened, particularly that period of time up until the death of Fred Hampton, the Black Panther Party was a model for what should happen in the community, to our particularly in the areas in which we live. And it became a global movement, and it wasn't just somebody having a gun to their side or whatever. They created programs. They created a breakfast program, free breakfast program for our children at school. They created a transportation program to get the elderly to the supermarket. They did a lot of other things in different areas in other words, to connect with the people, and the people were responding to these various programs that were set up by the Black Panther Party. And matter of fact, without these programs, the Black Panther Party would not have been able to exist as long as it did, because it was serving the people of the community. And once we understand work study, that is, that political education, we do our history, we do all the things that'll be necessary for us to understand where we are at this moment. So history is not just past history is past, present, and future. And so therefore, when we organize the work study program, we're talking about organizing right there on the ground, but also to understand that we're talking about taking control of our communities and organizing our communities for the future, so that we can begin to have power in our own hands. And so So the government, the FBI, and CIA basically understood the power of the Black Panther Party, so they did everything they could to eliminate through assassinations and through division and all these things. So when we talk about work study, we talk about coming together on a project in which we will begin to unite our people, organize our people, and to understand what is the nature of this struggle that we are doing, this protracted struggle that we are part of, so that we won't be doing things that would be detrimental to our community, and so therefore when we organize for power in our own hands, in our own community, and that way that we will see, and we will build structures in our community, and begin to control structures in our community, and particularly we'll be able to deal with the youth, to bring the youth into the movement, so that the youth can understand basically what's going on. So we're going to overturn the negative educational system that they have put upon us, and have put us in a point of where we don't know who we are as a people, or who we should be as a people. And so work study is, and program building are essential to being able to get our liberation.
Exactly. I mean, a lot of times we get frustrated, especially when you look at the negative forces within our community. It can seem overwhelming, especially if you surround yourself with the negative forces. If you're not a part of an organization that is about progressive change, about progressive movement, if you're not constantly surrounding yourself with like-minded people who are on the same wavelength about progress and about changing the material conditions in your community, in our reality. When that's not the reality, when that's not the situation, then things can get really frustrating. You can sit back and wonder, or stress over, like, what do we do? It seems like the problem is so huge. It's such a big problem that we can't even make a dent on it. That's how it can feel. It can easily get overwhelming in that way. But that is the power of organization. I tell this story often. I was working at this particular job, and there was a box of flyers. It came down and it bust open. And it was like 10,000 flyers in this little box, 10,000 flyers. And they were everywhere. And people just putting them in garbage bags, big garbage bags, just to get them out of the way. So ultimately, by the time we picked up all of these flyers, we had like 4 or 5 garbage bags full of flyers. I'm sorry. And you look at this small box and you wonder, how did these 10,000 flyers fit into this small box when they filled up 4 or 5 garbage bags, big garbage bags? How is that even possible? Well, one day I just decided to just sit down, and I'm going to take my time, and I'm going to take each individual flyer and I'm going to put it in the box, organize it, put it neat like it's supposed to be. And after I did that, it took a while, but after I did that, I actually, not only did I put all of the flyers from the 5 garbage bags into this little bitty box, but I actually had room for more, because there had been some more somewhere that I didn't get. But the whole point of that is, when these flyers were in the garbage bags, they were just put in there any kind of way. They were unorganized. And because they were unorganized, they were not efficient. They were not using their space efficiently. And they took up 5 garbage bags. But once we organized it, not only did these 10,000 flyers fit into this little bitty box, but we had room for more. And that's kind of the power of organization, when everybody is doing what they need to be doing in the most efficient and effective way. Then there is so much that we can get done. There's really no problem that we cannot solve. There is no mountain that we cannot climb if we are working together, if we are implementing the principles in which we have been taught. If we are implementing the New African Creed, if we're implementing the code of Emoja, if we're implementing the Nguzo Saba, if we are working collectively, we are utilizing the principles of Ujima, cooperative working responsibility, then there's really nothing we cannot accomplish, because when you're by yourself and you're looking at the enemy and everything that's wrong in the community, then it seems like you're like, what can I do? Well, the truth is, you by yourself is not much you can do. But if you get with me and with Grandmaster Teacher and the other comrade brothers and sisters, and we collectively work together, then there ain't nothing we can't do. And that's the importance of really the whole, when we was talking about decolonizing ourselves and eradicating ourselves from this Eurocentric mindset of individualism, where it's got to be about me. I got mine, you got to get yours, and this whole self-destructive mentality that does not work for our people, because that is not who we are. We have never been that people. And it is obvious that it does not work for us. And that's what they put, the European power structure put in front of us. They get a couple of us who have been successful within this system for whatever reason, and they dangle that in front of us and see, this is what you should do. See, this is how this system works. This is how it's successful. Be an individual like this individual, person, and you can be successful like them. Meanwhile, the masses suffer. The masses struggle. The masses succumb to this system of capitalism and imperialism and exploitation. But they dangle these couple of individuals in front of us saying, oh yeah, you can be an Oprah, you can be a Jay-Z, you can be a whoever. But the material reality within our community is we don't control the educational system in our community. We don't control the politics in our community. We don't control the justice system in our community. We don't control the laws in our community. We don't control the policies. We don't control what corporations come in our communities. We don't control what dangerous chemicals are dumped into our water supply, what byproducts are put into the air, polluting the air, causing cancer and all type of diseases that is detrimental to our people, to our youth and the unborn. So when we understand these dynamics and we understand the lack of control that we have of our very lives, then we should understand that there is something that we have to do about it. Something that we need to do about it, something that we must do about it. And if we lack the control to change those things, then that's where your fight is. That is where your struggle is. We have to gain control. We have to gain power. It's not just about simply hoping somebody likes you enough that they won't do harm to you, that they won't do anything negative to you. No, real power comes from having the ability to prevent someone from doing something to you, regardless to what they want to do. So our struggle is not about making white people love us, not about making white people like us, not even about making white people treat us better. It's about having the power to control our lives. The power to say, oh, this is how we are going to live. These are the policies that we are going to implement for ourselves. These are the laws that we are going to create to govern ourselves. And these are the allies that we're going to align ourselves with. And these are the goals and the objectives that we are going to pursue. Without having other individuals saying, no, this is the path in which we are laying for you and you are forced to follow it. That is not power. That is not freedom. We're trying to gain true independence, and we can't do it as individuals. We can't do it alone. We have to work together, and we have to be organized in a structured way, because we're not doing things just to do it, just to say we can do it. We're doing things because we are sincerely trying to make a change. We are sincerely trying to build within our community. We are sincerely trying to create a future for our youth, for the grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren who haven't even been born yet, you know? So, yeah, I'm going to yield on that. You got anything you want to follow up with, Comrade?
Yeah, I think you basically covered everything, but the thing is that we have to have an ideology of freedom, an ideology in which we all can embrace and we all can move in the same direction. Because if without having a correct ideology, we will not be able to achieve the goals and objectives in which it will bring about liberation. So therefore, that it is important that we understand history. It's important that we understand all the things that have gone before us and also the things that are happening at this time. In other words, we have got to know what's going on in the whole world, not just in the local areas in which we live. We must know everything that's going on in our local areas and build up our units within the local areas. But these localities have to begin to have an understanding that the political education is allowing us to hook up with all the other oppressed people in the world. There are all the other oppressed people that are struggling and moving, and we can look at past history to see how certain people got in a position such as the Chinese and such as the Vietnamese and different people who basically were able to defeat the enemy in order to take control over their land. And this is what we got to do here. In other words, so that organization means everything. If you don't have any organization, you will not be able to succeed in anything. And so it's important that we and then we study our revolutionary leaders and know who those revolutionary leaders were and how they got in a position of trying to achieve power or struggle in the areas in which they and begin to read revolutionary theory, books like Franz Fanon, like we mentioned earlier, Kwame Nkrumah, or Amilcar Cabral, Walter Rodney, and you can Google up all these people, the names, and find out what they wrote and what they said and how they was able to achieve things during that period of time in which they live, and understand why many of our people have become assassinated by the enemy because they were on the right track in terms of organizing our people. It's only through the people organized that we're going to be successful in any kind of way. The people are the ones that make history, not individuals. Individuals can only make history through the people. And it's the people who will make history. And once we understand that, then we will be able to go around our people and do those things that will be necessary to persuade them to come into organization or to create organization. And we talking about organization for the liberation of the people. We're not talking about integrating into the capitalist system or to any system that is oppressive to us and all that, and to have power within that. No, we want to overthrow those systems, and understand that's what revolution is all about.
Definitely. Before we get out of here, because it's approaching that time, we're almost at an hour. But before we get out of here, I actually had the pleasure. Well, I usually every Sunday I have an opportunity to talk to one of our comrades who run one of our prison political educational program, brother by the name of Atiba, who does excellent work in enlightening and educating the brothers inside the prison system up in Mountain City, way up there, northern Tennessee, almost up there by Kentucky. But he does a great job. He has a great program, and I have an opportunity to actually interview the brother, and I put together something. So Atiba, he coming back, y'all. He got something to say to the people, and he was talking about some of the violence and the things that was going on in Memphis, and I told him I was going to play it today, and we're going to talk about it briefly before we get out of here. But this is our comrade Atiba, y'all.
Comrade Atiba reveals all the lies.
I know people are responding to their conditions.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't give nobody a pass on the crime and bullshit that go on. All I'm saying is that this shit is planned this way. It's staged this way. It's set up this way. Everybody knows when you create a poverty situation and people's crime is going to be in the midst of that thing, man, and it's going to be at a high level. So all you got to do is look at the conditions of the people in Memphis. Then you'll understand that, damn, okay, no wonder they doing any damn crazy-ass thing and it's dangerous and shit like that. Look at the people, how they live in Memphis. Look at the job opportunities. All that shit has been stripped from the people out there. When you start making a living for yourself and doing well for yourself, you're not too quick to commit some type of crime to ruin your, what you got going on. It don't make sense. Look at the majority of people. That's economically sound like that. They ain't trying to fuck that up. And that's what you got out there in Memphis. You got a lot of people that ain't economically sound. We understand that capitalism is like a pyramid shape. It has a large base and a small top. And a lot of people at the top doing a lot of good things in their world. They just shine and they looking good. And people at the bottom ain't looking too goddamn good. This is why you got Memphis the way it is. You can look at Memphis right now. Why Memphis has been in an economic deprived situation for some years now. Mm-hmm. But all of a sudden Elon comes set up AI technologies up in that motherfucker, right? Right there in Memphis, and you got over 90% black population in Memphis. And he go and set up in South Memphis over there in Boxtown. Ain't got nail person out of Memphis working in it. But yet the city of Memphis has to sue these people because of the toxic waste that he's pushing out from this plant that he's setting up. And toxic waste is killing people already now in this neighborhood. And it's going to spread past the neighborhood. The neighborhood is small. But Elon Musk don't give a damn. He don't give a damn because guess what? It's poor people.
Comrade Atiba.
Was our comrade Atiba. We'll probably be hearing more from him. We try to get him involved, as he gets his situation improved. But I guess we can talk briefly before we get out of here because it's about time for us to go. But yeah, he was talking about crime, but not only crime, he was talking about the cause of crime, which the poverty and the conditions that the people are under, something that we've been knowing for a long time. Really, everybody has been knowing the cause of crime, and nothing, about the crime situation is unexpected, is all predictable. But when it goes back to what we're talking about, if you really want to try to tackle and deal with this condition, we have to organize around it. We have to organize around it concretely. Because we can't depend on any politician or somebody to come down from the sky to try to correct our situation for us. We got to really play an active role in the liberation of our people. You got anything to say about that before we get out?
Yes, it's important that we understand, what is the model for crime? Capitalism is the model for crime. In other words, where you there's no moral value or anything in terms of a human being, and so therefore you can just do anything to make money, anything, and you don't care whether it's wrong or whether it's right. So therefore, and this is where the political education has to come, because we'll find that the young criminal, the people that call themselves thinking that they're running things in America and all that, and that actually they are blocking our people from becoming to understand, get the education to understand that's a system is still a problem, regardless of what we think about the people that's committing crime. But it's a systematic thing, like you said. It's a global thing. It's a part of a whole thing where we have to. That's where our work study has to become more important in terms of being able to penetrate into our community and organize, policies and things that's going to help us collectively take care of our needs.
Exactly. You know, we are. You define a problem, you study a problem, and once you define it and study it, you bring about some solutions to solve the problems, and then you enact those solutions. You know, and you analyze the results of that, and you start the process all back over. But yeah, you know, as always, this is the voice of New Africa. I appreciate everybody for, you know, who tuned in today. A lot of people been coming in and out. Y'all get a chance, you know, hit that like button, drop a comment, let us know who you are so we can communicate with you and converse with you. This is the Voices of New Africa. As always, we lead with our battle cry, and that is
free the land, free the land, free the land.
Yes, bye. And we'll see y'all again next week, y'all. Peace.
It's not good enough to simply want to build a nation. We have to put in the work. But how? What do we do? Where do we start? Work, study, and training. Work, Study, and Training is a program designed to equip you with the necessary knowledge and skills of nation building. We help you create units that will effectively do the work. Study. Gain a vital political education. Study the blueprints left to us by nation builders who came before us. Training. Not only learn how to build a nation, but learn how to protect and defend what we build. Work. Now it's time to apply what we've learned. If we want a nation, we have to build it.
Stop the talking, stop